Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the 2023 FBRL Hardee's National Series season. We are here at Daytona for qualifying as we are set to begin a brand new season, a season with new challenges, new drivers, new teams, new everything, many new tracks, and oh boy, we got quite the show today as we have 61 cars attempting to qualify for today's Daytona race. Without further ado, let's get into the qualifying format, which will be unique to Daytona only this year. Qualifying has been split into two groups this season. Last season, we simply did single car qualifying as we only had, I believe, 41 cars attempt to qualify, but however, today we have 61, so here is the changes in format. Qualifying has been split into two groups. Group 1 will feature all cars outside the top 30 in owners' points. Group 1 qualifies for both pole and race in a single run. Everyone who is outside the top 30 in owners' points is in this group, so 31 cars are in this. The top 10 times from Group 1 transfer to Group number 2. Now, to clarify something here, Group 1 cars only qualify one time, so the times that apply to Group 1 will also apply to Group number 2. So no one qualifies twice, it's just simply everyone who transfers out of Group number 1 gets their times added to the Group 2 leaderboard. Group 2 features all cars inside the top 30 in owners' points, plus the added Group 1 times. Group 2 cars qualify only for the poles as they are already locked into the race based on owners' points. So you're probably thinking, if you do the math, that's about 40 cars transferring purely based on speed, which means there are 2 positions left available to qualify in. Position 41 will be given to the highest car who does not qualify in on speed in owners' points. So the typical provisional that you are used to will be applied for position 41, and then position 42 will be for the past champions provisional. However, the past champions provisional is not used. Granted, there is only one car with a driver with the past champions provisional eligibility who is outside the top 30 in owners' points, which we'll get to later. If this provisional is not used, then position 42 will be given a standard provisional, which will be the next highest car in owners' points after position 41. So row 21 will essentially be 2 cars based on provisionals. It's a bit of a different experimental format for this season, and it's only planned to be used for Daytona, and with 61 cars, a particular format was kind of needed. So without further ado, let's get straight into qualifying, as we've got quite the long day ahead of us. And here we go, the first car coming from pit lane as we begin qualifying. And the person who's getting the privilege of going out first to be the first driver to get on track here in the Hardee's National Series in 2023 is Craig Popcrass for Lessard Enterprises here. Now if you look over to the right, you will see the leaderboard, which currently shows the top 25. This will occasionally fluctuate to show other cars that's at the top 25 as the day goes on. And then below that you have the speedometer, which will show the miles per hour shown of the car on the racing surface here. And below that as well will be the timer. So when the driver crosses the line to complete their lap, the lap time will appear on the bottom right, which will then be added to the leaderboard. So Craig Popcrass here for Lessard Enterprises, and that is your eyes are not deceiving you. That is a Honda Accord, as Honda has the privilege of having the first car on track this season. Craig Popcrass, the 18-year-old, driving for Lessard Enterprises, a brand new team here in the Hardee's National Series. Not much is known about this team, nor is it known much about its driver here, other than that the team is owned by the Lessard family. And we will see more of the Lessard family later as Cameron Lessard, one of the team owners, is in the field. But coming to complete his first lap here, Popcrass across the line, 49.997. So Craig Popcrass transfers over into the first time of the day with a 49.9 0.97. Next car up is the 07 of Amanda Evans for Red Stallion Racing. Red Stallion Racing, who is going to be fielding a single car that's full-time, but this is the part-time car, the 07 Toyota Supra, the pink Speed Energy Mobile. Amanda Evans hoping to have a better couple of starts than she did last season, as the 07 oftentimes struggled to qualify into races, and Red Stallion Racing is trying to right the ship here this year. And like I said, this car is not full-time, but they'll be hoping to at least get this car into as many races as possible here, but there's going to be a lot of really tough entry lists that they're going to have to fight their way through here, as across the line for a 49.979, which will move Evans to the top of the board. So Amanda Evans with a .979. Next car up is the number 36 Young Motorsports Ford Mustang, driven by one of last season's championship contenders, Diego Yepes, who will be running this 36 car on a part-time basis this year. Yepes is moving up to the Sony Cup Series after a very successful Hardee's National Series campaign in 2022. And what's going to be kind of interesting here is, so Young Motorsports, they're actually going to have a small technical alliance with Turner for a handful of races this season. We're told that when Yepes and Major Robinson are going to drive this 36, they are going to have proper Turner engines. But it's still going to be quite the uphill battle here to qualify in. Diego Yepes, a very experienced Hardee's driver, hoping to get Young Motorsports into this field after this 36 car struggled to qualify for a lot of races last season. And that is a top of the board lap there is Diego Yepes with a 49.759, which will move Yepes to the top of the board. And not just top of the board by over 2/10 over Evans and Popcrass, so perhaps that engine coming into play here. Speaking of Turner engines, here's the first Turner Performance Racing car to qualify in for today. Huck Davis in the 99 will be attempting to qualify into his first race this season. Granted, it is the first race this season for everybody, but regardless, Huck Davis, who ran a part-time schedule in this 99 car last season, they upgraded the car to a full-time effort for this year. And while they have no owner's points to fall back on, they are confident that Huck will be able to get this car into all the races. Huck Davis actually impressed a lot of people with his run in Memphis at the end of last season. Really showed some potential speed. Actually may have had a race-winning car, but unfortunately circumstances put them in the back. But Davis would love to try and redeem himself at Daytona. Had a great run at Talladega last season, so this 99 team does have a track record of good plate race finishes. As Davis, top of the board with a 49.670. That'll move Yepes, Evans, and Popcrass down to the next row down. But a 49.670 puts him number one. Well, if the Honda Accord didn't surprise you, this will be sure to surprise you, as that is a Mercedes AMG on the racetrack coming in for qualifying, as the 42 Dun the Pratt for Texan Motorsports here is set to make Mercedes his first lap in the series here. Dun the Pratt and this 42 team had a bit of a struggle last season, as they had a good, decent, okay start to the season, but unfortunately fell out of the top during North Point and struggled here. But yes, Texan Motorsports, who had long been a loyal driver to the Ford brand, had has made the move over to the Mercedes team as they want to be part of the new Mercedes Hardee's organization here. Mercedes made their debut in Sony Cup and Trucks last season, and now this is their first foray into the Hardee series here. In Texas Motorsports, they are hoping that this change Mercedes will give them the boost they need to move up through the field, but it's not going to put them up at the top of the board, as Dunlop clocks in at a 49.8767, excuse me. So LaPrade, that will move him to third for the time being, and I'm not sure that was exactly the time they were looking for, but it is the time that they have been given nonetheless. Next up, Cody Lamas in the number 94 for Shade Binyaka Racing. And this was quite the turn in silly season during the off-season, as CM Racing decided to sell off all of their assets and equipment to Shade Binyaka Racing. And that's caused quite the stir throughout the FBRL garages here. So Shade Binyaka Racing expanding from 2 full-time cars to 3 full-time cars as they inherited all of the team's owners' points. And this is the 4th part-time car that I'll be driving for a couple of select races here in 2023. Lamas, a very accomplished and very established Sony Cup Series driver, hoping to see if he can get this 94 into the field here. And looking pretty good. 182 at the line. We've seen other guys clock in at 181 at the line, and a 49.684, which will put Lamas second on the board. So a good lap here for Mr. Lamas here, as they are really hoping that this car can make the show here. Next up, we got Brad Stover in the number 39 Young Motorsports Ford Mustang here. So both of the Young Motorsports cars getting their laps out of the way early here. Brad Stover, he is the lone full-time driver for Young Motorsports in this number 39. Not much is known about him, but they're hoping that they can qualify into this race here. Now, this car does not have a Turner engine like Yepes does. So the question is going to be, will this car have as much horsepower on the straightaways as the Turner cars are typically supposed to have? Brad Stover clocking about 180 miles per hour through the corner here. And coming to complete his lap here. 182 seems to be the good miles per hour you're going to want to get to at the line. Stover at a 180 and runs a 50.051, which is the slowest time so far. So Stover, that is not looking to be a hot lap there. And he's the first car to clock outside of the 49s. Up next, we have Major Robinson in the 81 car for Sanders Performance Autosport. Spa, who has decided to expand the program a little bit, moving up to 3 cars from 2 last season. Now, this 81 car is expected to be shared among several drivers, including James Shelley, but today we have Major Robinson in this 81 car trying to qualify this car in. Now, actually, Spa pretty impressed a lot of people in testing. They showed some pretty good speed from Pericles and Tim Fiegel. And you can see the comparative in speed between this car and that 39, as he managed to clock in 182 entering turn number 3, coming off turn number 4 here. Let's see the lap time Robinson puts down, 182. That's roughly the speed Davis had at the line. 49.653, that will put Robinson to the top of the board. So Major Robinson, with a nice effort there, out qualifying one of his TPR companions here. And Spa's got to be very thrilled about that. Well, we got 3 new manufacturers coming to the Hardee Series this season. We just saw the Honda, we saw the first Mercedes, and now we have a Mitsubishi here in the Hardee's National Series here. Mitsubishi will be making their FBRL debuts this weekend at Daytona. This is a number 6 Mitsubishi driven by Dom Capps, fielded by Team Velocity, as this will be a part-time effort. Don Capps, one of the most respected and appreciated veterans in the FBRL, and he looks like he's going to be spending a good part of the twilight of his career helping build Mitsubishi into a powerhouse here in FBRL. And Mitsubishi would love to get both of their 2 cars qualified into the race here this weekend. And they're looking quick. 183 coming to the line. Remember, 182 was the miles per hour that Robinson had, and a 49.352 for Dom Capps, a massive heater, 3/10 quicker than Robinson. A monster lap there from Capps. Mitsubishi coming in high, and that is going to be a potential maybe pole time even. Next up, we have the number 75 Little Falls Motorsports Honda Accord being driven full-time by Joshua Michaels here. Little Falls Motorsports in their 2nd year in the Hardee's National Series, hoping to qualify both of their cars into Daytona. Joshua Michaels ran a part-time schedule for this team last season. The very respected journeyman driver managed to earn the team's best finish last season of 17th, if I remember correctly, at Boston. They've got some tough competition to make this race here, as Michaels clocks in 181 entering turn number 3. And we saw Dom Capps run an absolute heater there, as he was 183 at the line. I'm not sure Michaels is going to get to that miles per hour here, but looking to be at 181 here, maybe 182. Across the line, 49.949 for Michaels. That will put him ahead of a couple of cars, but not the time I think they were hoping for. Saying that, though, they did out-qualify a couple of veteran teams here. So a nice lap from Michaels, all things considered. Next up, we've got the number 65 Team Gateway Chevy Camaro being driven by Christopher Jones here. Team Gateway making their Hardee's National Series debut. Trying to attempt to get all of their cars into the show. They've brought 3. They're running 2 full-time cars. This is the part-time car. The DLP Texas Instrument number 65. Christopher Jones, who last season ran a part-time schedule for SD Motorsports here. Now, what's interesting about this team is they actually have an engine alliance with SD Motorsports, who exited the series and have moved their efforts to the Sony Cup Series full time. So it's not often to get a first-year team getting such help here. Granted, it's only the engines. But Jones here clocking in 178 off of turn 4. Didn't exactly get a good exit there. And 183 is going to be what you want, but it's only going to be 180 for Jones and a 50.185 for Christopher Jones, the slowest time so far today. And that does not bode well there for the other 2 cars if Jones, the veteran, struggles there. Next up, we've got Eric Rodriguez in the number 63 Flipside Motorsports Mercedes AMG. Flipside Motorsports, who left the Hardee Series last season to focus on their Cup program. They have now returned to the Hardee Series, bringing their truck program into the Hardee Series. And they've got quite an interesting battle here because they don't have owner's points. So they're going to have to try and make this on speed here. Eric Rodriguez, who last season had a truck ride, but unfortunately got released due to sponsorship problems. And did not get to race much in 22 because of it. Eric Rodriguez clocking in 184, entering turn number 3. This is actually looking to be a pretty good lap here. Looking to be a bit quicker than the other Mercedes of Dun LaPrade, as Rodriguez comes off 182 off the corner. 183. We saw him hit 184 on the backstretch. Can he hit 184 at the line? Not quite, but a 49.263 puts Rodriguez at the top of the board. And Mercedes overtakes Dom Caps's Mitsubishi there. And a very nice lap from the 63 team. And that is going to make them sweat maybe a little bit less there. Up next, it's the other Mitsubishi. Shade Eves looking to top the 63 and get Mitsubishi back on top of the board. Shade Eves driving for the brand new Spark Sport team, who is the going to be the Hardee's National Series factory team for Mitsubishi here in 2023. And they've got quite a good driver lineup here, especially with Shade Eves here. Shade Eves, who was a couple positions away from winning the championship last season. Unfortunately, not exactly the best optimized pit strategy, unfortunately knocked him out of the title. But Eves here looking for redemption in Daytona, moving up to the Sony Cup Series for 2023. But right now focusing here on trying to get this car into the show. 182 off of turn 4, looking to be a pretty solid lap here. Not hitting 184, but a decent lap nonetheless. A 49.531, which will put Eves third. We'll see if that is enough to get him into the show. He's the first person to hit the 0.5 bracket here. Up next here, it's Red Bull Racing. They have returned to the Hardee's National Series here in 2023 as Dylan Poteet in the 83 car, the Honda Accord, mind you, going to try and qualify his way into the race. Red Bull Racing, who was supposed to race in 2022 for Pontiac, but unfortunately the Pontiac Car Race program, well, you saw how that worked out. And unfortunately Red Bull Racing pulled out before the start of the season, but they're back this year, and they're hoping to have some success. Now, if you notice on the leaderboard, you'll notice the number 4 that's been put next to Brad Stover. So now that we've got more than 10 cars out qualified here, that means cars who are outside the top 10 are going to have to get in through provisionals. So Stover is 4th on the Provo list. That is what that 4 means. So the lower the ranking is, the higher that person is in the Provo order. Well, coming across the line here, 182 towards the line for Poteet. The young rookie driver here clocks in with a 49.682, which will put him 5th on the board, impressively ahead of the Turner car of Huck Davis. Or actually, excuse me, I apologize. Actually above the 94 of Cody Lamas here. This is embarrassing. Don't pay attention. No, ignore the minor spelling mistake. Post the GIF. Post the GIF in the chat. Wait, you can't. Next up, we've got the 55 Team Gateway Chevy Camaro with Shane Miller. Miller hoping to fare maybe a little bit better than Jones did. Now, granted, that was a part-time car, so maybe one of the main cars is going to have a little bit of speed here. Like we said, Team Gateway, they have a small alliance with SG Motorsports here. But outside that, they're a pretty much fully independent effort here. Miller here in the 55, 180 down the back straightaway here, 181. If he can get to 182, maybe this could be a decent lap. 180, 181 through the corner here. Team Gateway, they just want at least, I think at this point, they just want at least one of their cars in the show here. But a decent exit there for Miller there. Clocks in 181 at the line. 49.866. That will put them into the top 10 ahead of Dunlaprade. And just behind Yepes there, so fared a lot better than Jones did. Almost about 3/10 quicker than Jones, so they must have had something figured out a little bit better there. And not just beat Laprade, beat him by a thousand pretty much. Up next, Blaze McKinney in the number 5 Mercedes-AMG for Freeze Racing Team. Freeze Racing Team making their return to the Hardee Series this year on a part-time schedule. Freeze Racing Team had the privilege of being the first Mercedes truck team to win for Mercedes last season. And now they're here at Daytona, hoping to see if they could perhaps do the same magic and get Mercedes' first win in the Hardee Series. But they're going to have to qualify in here. Now, Freeze Racing Team, they actually have been in the Hardee Series before, but for veteran viewers, that didn't exactly end very well, as the Free Racing Team eventually became a Single Z Racing, as they took their assets here. McKinney clocked in 182 entering turn number 4. But what will his time be here? Comes off 181 off of turn 4. Can the Freeze team make the show here? Not getting to 182 at the line. Not the lap I think they're going to hope for, but it's a 49.789 for Blaze McKinney, and that's going to bump Dunlaprade out of the top 10, and that is going to put him into the Provo order there. But McKinney, I'm not sure that's going to be good enough to make the show, but we will see here. Bobo Jones here in the number 54 Dodge Dart for Breeding Enterprises here. And this is kind of odd to look at because Nick Breeding, who won last season's championship, drove the 54 in that same font, but Bobo Jones is now driving it, but it's a Dodge Dart. This was interesting because this was a very, very last minute deal put together here for Breeding Enterprises. They actually weren't even at first intending on running part-time at all this season, but they're going to be running 5 races with Bobo Jones, who did not win last season, but had a lot of good pace in a lot of races last season. He's moving up to the Cup Series this year. And 182 off of turn 4 here. Looking like a solid time here. 183. If he can hit 184 at the line, can he beat Rodriguez here? 49.293. That puts Breeding Enterprises 54 into second place. Not bad for a last minute effort here, and that puts him up into second. And that will knock Shane Miller out of the top 10. Here comes Luis Hernandez and the 00 Curtis racing car. And we mentioned with Bobo Jones that how much of a last-minute deal was put together for Breeding Enterprises. This was even more last-minute, as Luis Hernandez in the 4th Curtis car, which will be part-time in 2023. And Hernandez is going to have a very interesting schedule this year. He's running with a couple of different teams as a full-time schedule. He's going to be running with Nova Sports number 3. He's going to be running the number 94 for Shade Binyako. And he'll be in the 00 here for 5 races for Curtis Racing as well. So he's going to have a very busy year bouncing around different teams here. And we'll see if he can qualify in here. He was heading about 182 entering turn number 3. I think if you want to be safe, you're going to want to hit 183, 184. Coming to the line here. Well, lap will Hernandez clock in for Curtis Racing. 49.520 for Hernandez. That will put him 4th on the board. So a solid lap for Hernandez here. We'll see if it's enough to get in. But running a 5.2 is a nice lap there. Well, if you can believe it, the Sony Cup Series King Richard Johnson has come to the Hardee's F Series, and he is coming for a title this season for Joseph Sirigley Racing and a Dodge Dart. You want to talk about a team that's trying to go all in on winning races for the first time and winning a championship for the first time. That is Joseph Sirigley Racing this season. Richard Johnson driving the number 10, which has the team's best finish of 3rd with Julio Caesar at Memphis last season here. And they're a little bit nervous because they got 2 cars that are pretty low in the Provo order here, so they're trying to make it in on time. Johnson clocked in 183 up in turn 3. We've seen the fastest times hit 184. 182 off of turn 4. This is looking to be a pretty good lap here. 183 coming to the line. Can he hit 184? Can the King get on pole? Not quite, but it will put him to 4th. Richard Johnson qualifies for the moment a 4th with a 49.370. And that will move Diego Yepes out of the top 10. Up next, we have the final Team Gateway car attempting to qualify. Tyler Garcia in the number 25. Now, unlike the other 2 Gateway cars, this car does have a spot on the Provo order, but unfortunately, with Stover and LaPrade out of the top 10, Garcia is going to have no choice but to qualify this in on time if he wants to race. Tyler Garcia was not actually originally the original pick for this car, but they were able to put a deal together for him to get him to Daytona. And clocking in 181 in turn 3, they're going to need to pick up the pace here off of turn 4 if they want any chance here. Lamas currently on the bubble with a 49.684. That's the time to beat. 181. Can he at least get 182 at the line? No, he doesn't. 49.996 for Tyler Garcia. And that will not be enough to get him in the show, I believe. And it's looking like Team Gateway, they're going to send all their cars home. 0 for 3. Up next, we've got Nick Pericles in the number 90 for Standards Performance Autosport. And this is a lap to keep an eye on here because Pericles, he is top of the Provo order. And based on the format, he is, in theory, locked into the race if he does not get into the top 10 on speed here. So if you're Dun LaPrade, you are basically begging for Pericles to get in the top 10. Because if I understand it correctly, if Pericles qualifies good enough and doesn't have to fall back in provisional, LaPrade or Alexander Rowe, once he has his lap in, they will have their chance to get in the race on provisional here. 182 up into turn 3 here. Pericles actually showed, and we talked about this earlier, Spa showed some pretty good speed in testing throughout the offseason. And Pericles here, unfortunately, at the very last race of the season, fell out of the top 3 Norris points, which is why they're in this position to begin with here. And what lap will they clock in? Pericles, 0.670. He ties with Huck Davis. And that's going to be a very interesting one there. Now, Pericles should go ahead because of his provisional spot. He has higher Norris points, which would be the tiebreaker. So Pericles, he will go up to 8th place here. And that will knock Cody Lamas out of the top 10. Up next, the number 15, Eric Drew Incorporated Dodge Dart, being driven by Aaron Abel here. One of the independent teams trying to make their way into the show here. Now, if you look at the leaderboard, you've noticed names and times have started to be put in red. That's because we are now eliminating people for not being in the top 10 here. And we've got 2 cars on the Provo list outside of the top 10. So everyone in red, unfortunately, has failed to qualify for the race. LaPrade and Stover are currently in on the 2 provisionals so far. But Dylan Poteet in 10th. He is on the bubble here. Aaron Abel in this 15. Abel ran a part-time schedule for Tommy Roberts Racing last season to not a lot of success, and barely 180 entering turn 3 here. And he's going to need a mass run off of turn 4, I think, if he wants to have a shot at getting into this race here. 180 coming towards the line. Not going to be an amazing lap, I don't think. 50.1.124. And that will put Abel second to last on the chart. So Aaron Abel and Eric Drew Incorporated, they are heading home. Now, in the previous laps, we had shown people coming off of turn 4 take their laps here, but I think this is a case where I think everyone's going to want to see what's going to happen here, because this is the real wild card of qualifying here. Anthony Marchese, the former Hardee's National Series champion, he is the only driver in the outside the top 3 North points who is eligible for the Past Champions Provisional here. And the Past Champions Provisional is locked in at 42nd if that PCP is used. And if you're Brad Stover, you are basically begging that Marchese can get this car in the show on speed. Because if the Past Champions Provisional is not used, then that 42nd place just becomes a standard Provo. Little Falls Motorsports here. Joshua Michaels unfortunately has not made the show, but they're hoping Marchese, I mean, I think they want him to make it on time, but this is what they brought him in for, was that provisional. And Marchese here, I mean, it's a great opportunity for this team to get a driver like Marchese in this car, but oh boy, 179 entering turn 3. That's one of the slowest entries I've seen so far today in turn 3. And Marchese, 178 off the line. This is not looking good if you're on that Provo order list. Coming across the line, struggling to click 180. Marchese, 50.367. That will be the worst time so far. But he's in the show with the Past Champions Provisional, and that will knock Brad Stover out. Tristan Grace here for Red Stallion Racing. Now, I want to make an apology here. The 07 for Red Stallion Racing is actually a full-time car. I said it was a part-time car before, but no, I was corrected. It is a full-time car. As is this number 7 of Tristan Grace. He will be their full-time driver in this number 7 Toyota Supra. Unfortunately, Evans has failed to make the race. So now they're going to hope that Grace can gracefully get in. What? Don't look at me like that. But Grace, he is 11th on the Provo order. Wow, Provo order. So he has to make this race on speed here. One just barely clocked 180. Now, granted, at least that was faster than Marchese's 179 in turn 3, which I'm sure a lot of people outside top 30 Norris points was thrilled about Marchese's lap there. But Grace here coming across the line, making his rookie debut, trying to get in the show. 49.941, not enough. Not the slowest time, and it was faster than Evans, but still not good enough to get in with a 941. Well, we've got a Red Bull situation here. Daniel Bouchard coming out for his lap here. And look who's on the bubble in 10th. It's his teammate Dylan Poteet. So now, Daniel Bouchard in the 82, he's going to try to qualify into his race here, but it could be at the expense of his teammate here. Bouchard, who has been running in the Cup Series, Sony Cup Series for the past couple seasons, has dropped down to the Hardee Series to try and regroup his career here and trying to see if he can make the race on time. If you notice, some of the colors have changed. Green indicates that that driver is locked in into Daytona. And the purple is the pass change provisional here. And Bouchard clocked in a pretty decent speed in turn 3, trying to clock in a decent speed coming to the line. Poteet holding his breath here. Red Bull Racing, I don't think they're going to be happy either way here. 49.539 for Bouchard. That will be enough to get him ahead of a couple of cars. But unfortunately, that is going to knock Dylan Poteet out. So Bouchard with a nice solid lap there of 0.539. It does not lock him in, but it locks out his teammate. Here comes Daniel Voiles here, and the number 60 Dodge Dart for Jeff James Incorporated. This is a second-year effort for this driver-team combo, but with a manufacturer change. Last season, this team drove Ford Mustangs, but they've decided to make the choice to move over to the Dodge Darts. Voiles had a couple of okay runs for what that team was expecting, and they're hoping to get some even bigger improvements this season here. Now, Voiles needs to run faster than a .670. Huck Davis currently sitting on the bubble despite being tied with Pericles because of owner's points. So Voiles here needs to get below a .670 here if he wants to race on Saturday. 180 off of turn 4, clocks up to 181. Can he at least get to 182? Voiles across the line. 49.874 for Daniel Voiles, and unfortunately, that will not be enough to make it in the show. And this just proves that Dunkin' Donuts is, in fact, the better donut place. Joseph Sirigli Racing here, the number 11 Dodge Dart with Tib Foster, the full-time Monster Energy series, Monster Energy Racing truck driver, excuse me. But Foster, he is running full-time in trucks, looking to see if he can make Daytona here in the Hardee's National Series. This 11 car is below LaPrade on the provisional list, so they have to make this on time here. Foster's running some part-time starts throughout 2023 in the Hardee's National Series, as Monster Energy Racing is quite keen on developing him. As, ooh, look at this, 183 entering turn 3 here. Not 184. We have not seen a 184 since Rodriguez took to the board. But coming off our turn 4 here, Joseph Sirigli Racing, if this is good enough, better than a .670, I think they may breathe a sigh of relief. 49.416 for Foster. That will lock him in into Daytona, and both of the Sirigli cars are now through into Saturday's race. And that has got to be a massive sigh of relief for this team. They took a big risk with this owner's point situation. Up next, we have the Tommy Roberts Racing renumbered number 38 Ford Mustang here with Jack Boswell, who's going to be making his Hardee's debut this season, driving full-time for this team. Tiff Foster's lap has knocked Huck Davis out of the top 10. So TPR, they're going to have one of their cars surprisingly miss Daytona. And with 4 cars left to go here, this is going to get real tight. And if you're Dun LaPrade, you got to be real nervous because now Nick Pericles, who has the highest number in the Provo order, he is on the bubble here. So if Pericles gets knocked out, he has to go to provisional here. Boswell, and trying to see if he can somehow make it in here, but that was not a good speed through turn 3. Tommy Roberts Racing, they really struggled to qualify for a lot of races last season. And they're hoping for some improvement here, but they are struggling to get to 180 at the line. 50.419. Slowest time of the day. So Marchese at least outqualifies one driver, but that will not be good enough to get into the show. And Tommy Roberts Racing is going home. Up next, the Bishop Family Racing team here with AJ Jones driving a Ford Mustang for this season on a part-time effort. They'll be running full-time in the Napa Truck Series. And this is actually a very intriguing driver-team combo here. This is a first-year team. And but AJ Jones, he's actually being touted as a really, really high prospect over in the Truck Series right now. Had a great season last season. And now he's trying to see if he can get this first-year team in Daytona in the Hardee's National Series. And this team actually did show some good speed at the short track test in Memphis. But unfortunately, they clocked 180 here over in turn 3. And they're going to need a bit more speed than that, I think, to make it into Daytona today. AJ Jones didn't exactly get the best exit off either. This is not looking like it's going to be enough for AJ. Across the line, 50.105. Puts him in the top 25, but not enough to make Daytona. So unfortunately, Bishop Family Racing, they're going to be heading home. And that will lock in Daniel Bouchard. We're down to 2 more cars here in group number 1 for Daytona qualifying here. Alexander Rowe in the 86 Horizon Group Honda Accord is now taking his lap here. And this is quite a very interesting lineup as well. Alexander Rowe, a Sony Cup Series veteran. Been running in the Truck Series for a little while with a lot of success. And Horizon Group, who last year really took a big step back. They really just struggled driving those Pontiacs, and it was just a really tough year for that team. But they're hoping with these Honda Accords that they could redeem themselves here. Now, Alexander Rowe is ahead of Dunn LaPrade on the Provo order list. So LaPrade is going to want Rowe to qualify in on speed here. But right now, looking at the speed, I'm not sure Rowe's going to get in the top 10. Coming to the line here, Rowe in the 86. 50.033. That was way slower than I was expecting. And that is going to put Alexander Rowe on the bubble here because he is now the highest car on the Provo order list outside of the top 10 here. And this is going to be a very, very tense final car moment here because Rowe is basically in the show depending on what happens here next. Here we go. The final car in Group 1 qualifying here to make the Daytona race. And it's all going to come down to Christian Vargas on whether Pericles or Rowe makes this race. Alexander Rowe, second in the Provo order. He's in if Pericles stays in 10th where he's at. So Rowe, he's going to want Vargas to not make the top 10. Pericles, I don't think it matters either way to him. He's in the show, but he would much prefer not having to use the provisional. But here we go. Christian Vargas in the 51 for Flipside Motorsports here. His teammate Eric Rodriguez clocked in the fastest time so far in the Mercedes AMG. Christian Vargas, who has been racing in the Truck Series for Flipside for the past couple of seasons to moderate success. They've decided to bring him up into the Hardee Series, hoping to perhaps get a couple of wins here, maybe perhaps run for a championship here as Mercedes' flagship team in the Hardee Series. And look at the speed Vargas has got, 183 down the back straightaway. Doesn't clock 184 like Rodriguez did, but that 51 is looking speedy. Alexander Rowe, I think he's going to be in some trouble here. Horizon Group may be looking at their Daytona hopes going away. Coming across the line, Vargas with 183. 49.316. Christian Vargas is in. Nick Pericles gets knocked out of the top 10. He will have to fall back on provisional. Vargas goes through, and that will be the end for Horizon Group. They will not make Daytona for the second straight season. Remember, Horizon Group, they didn't even get to Daytona on time. They had to miss it. And now for the second year in a row, they have now missed Daytona. So looking at the order here, Eric Rodriguez, Bobo Jones, Christian Vargas, Dom Capps, Richard Johnson, Tib Foster, Luis Hernandez, Shade Eves, Daniel Bouchard, Major Robinson. They are all in on speed. And the final two cars that will transfer out with them, Nick Pericles will start 41st through provisional as he was knocked out at the last moment. And all the way down here, Anthony Marchese, he is in the show as well, but he will start 42nd using the past champions provisional. What an exciting end to qualifying here, and a lot of happiness and a lot of heartbreak on pit road. But with that being said, let us move on to Group 2 as we settle things for the pole. Here we go, Group 2 qualifying here. You can see over at the leaderboard, the 10 drivers who transferred out of Group 1, they have had their times added to the Group 2 leaderboard. Nick Pericles, Anthony Marchese, those two are locked in at 41st and 42nd. So even if someone runs a slower time than those guys, they're going to stay 41st and 42nd. But anyways, here we go. One of the big storylines coming into the season is the rebuild of Allen Family Racing Team as Justin Henley comes to take his first lap here. Allen Family Racing Team changed ownership over the offseason and lost both of their star drivers, Bradley Bishop Jr., who has gone down to the Truck Series, and Sean Angel, who is not planning to race in FBRL this year at all. So that means A4T has a brand new driver lineup, and Justin Henley is 45, taking over Bradley Bishop Jr.'s ride, which competed for a championship last season. And there's going to be a lot of questions to see how well these AFRT cars performed this year with so many changes. Henley last season ran a part-time schedule with SV Motorsports. They were pretty impressed with his efforts, so AFRT picked him up and they're going to give him a shot here. Across the line, 49.804, which is a slower time than Major Robinson. So, not exactly the lap that I think that AFRT was hoping for, but at least they are safely in the show. That lap would not have been good enough if they didn't have owners points. Up next, another first-year team, and this is a very interesting one. The Kev Shear Racing Team, owned by Hardee's National Series veteran and champion Kev Shear. And they've got a very interesting driver here, Sebastian Kukulon, in the number 69 here. Nice. And Kukulon is... there was a lot of surprise about him leaving Single Z Racing after last season. You know, Single Z Racing was a first-year team, and Kukulon got them some really good finishes. They ran the top 10 on occasion, but Kev Shear must be one heck of a charismatic team owner, because he managed to convince Kukulon to come over to his first-year team. They got some owners points, so they're locked in for the first couple of races here. And Kukulon looking to build this team forward here. And we saw the progress he made with Single Z. And I think Kev Shear Racing Team hopes that he's going to do the same thing for them. They're using last year's CM Racing equipment. And 49.863 for Sebastian Kukulon, slower than Henley. And like I said, owner's points, very important, because, again, that would not have been enough to get in on speed. But they are in Daytona, and they will race. Well, ladies and gentlemen, here is your defending Hardee's National Series champion, Nick Breeding, on track here to take his qualifying lap here for Rodriguez Racing. Nick Breeding won last season's championship in a nail-biter, and was a very big emotional affair for him. It's hard to see, but on the rear deck lid, they actually put a champion's badge with his old 54. As you noticed, Breeding decided to elect to change his number, going from 54 to the number 9. Now, it's the same team and personnel as before, but decided they wanted to go with the number 9, which is the more traditional Rodriguez Racing number. Now, Breeding was one of the very few who decided to, from last season's championship, to not move on from the Hardee series. And now Breeding here, looking to see if he can get a nice pole lap here. 183, that's on track for it. Can he get it? 49.298 for the defending series champion. That will temporarily put him third on the board. So Breeding will not enter Daytona with the pole position, but still a good lap nonetheless. Speaking of previous champions, Kev Shearer in the 0 for Shade Bignacco Racing here. We mentioned in the Group 1 qualifying about how CM Racing sold off all their assets and such to Shade Bignacco Racing, and they have now taken over that team. Kev Shearer looking to put last year behind him after what was a very, very tough title defense year for Kev Shearer. And you have to feel that this is basically a new era for this team, and there's a lot of questions on how this team's going to perform. Shade Bignacco Racing had some really great speed last season with Ryan Butcher at the helm, and now they've got a really strong driver lineup here with Kev Shearer and Butcher. Now, Shearer clocked in 182 in turn 3, and I don't think that's going to be good enough to run for the pole here. We'll see what lap Shearer can put down in the Shade Bignacco number 0, 49.665. That will put him outside the top 10, right in front of Justin Henley. So Shearer, not exactly the lap I think he was looking for, but he will race Saturday. Up next, Sparn Motorsports is now on track here for the first time today with rookie driver Cameron Lessard, a driver out of Canada, making his Hardee's National Series debut this weekend, and driving a Honda Accord. Sparn Motorsports, the team that's sort of expected to be the driving force for Honda this season, to be the star team for this manufacturer. And we'll be seeing the other two Spartan cars later in the session here. But right now, Cameron Lessard, young rookie out of Canada, going to be in the race no matter what because of bonus points. Clocks in 183 at turn 3. That's pretty good. That was a pretty good speed entering turn 3 here. He holds 181 off of 2, gets right, off of 4, goes right back to 182, 183. If he can get to 184, this could be close for pole. 49.461 for Cameron Lessard. That will put him in front of Luis Hernandez. A nice lap for Lessard. That's exactly I think Sparn was wanting out of him for that situation there. A nice clean lap. On track, it's everyone's least favorite Hardee's National Series driver Tim Fiegel and the number 87 Spa Ford Mustang. And what a day it's been for Spa, with Nick Pericles getting in on provisional and Major Robinson getting the final spot on speed in qualifying. So Spa will have all 3 cars in for Daytona. And this was the car that has the easiest journey, Tim Fiegel's 87. Tim Fiegel last season kind of struggled a little bit at the start, and but they turned it around as the season went on, and they picked up speed as the year went on, and they're hoping to build upon what he helped start last season. Spa had a kind of a difficult first year as a team, but this year there is some intrigue to see how much they're going to improve. 182 at the line, won't be for the pole. Fiegel across the line, 49.741, which will be right in front of Justin Henley and behind Kev Shear. So, Spa cars running pretty similar lap times across the board if you look at it. On track is Lane Sanders, who's going to be running a full-time season with Turner Performance Racing this season, the number 97 Ford Mustang. And Turner hoping for a little bit of a better qualifying effort here, as unfortunately Hug Davis failed to qualify out of group number 1. But fortunately, he's got 2 who are going to be in the show, one being Lane Sanders and one being RJ Bishop, who we'll be seeing shortly. Lane Sanders coming off his first career Napa Truck Series win last season, and looking to try and carry on that success here into 2023. And he's got a really good team behind him here to really show what he can do. He drove for Spar Motorsports in a couple of part-time efforts last season, and people were really impressed. He ran top 10 on occasion. So there's some intrigue to see how well he runs this season. 183 coming to the line here. Could be a solid lap here. 49.481, slower than Lassard, but faster than Hernandez. So that would put Sanders in the top 10 for the moment, but still quite a ways to go for the man with a plan. Cody Goforth here in the number 92 for Single Z Racing. And this was quite the interesting offseason for Single Z Racing, as one of the big questions they had was Sebastian Kukulon did not resign with the team, and a lot of people were surprised by that. The question was he going to return, and he didn't. And Single Z Racing, they mulled it over for a while, and they elected to bring up their Truck Series veteran driver Cody Goforth up to the Hardee's National Series full-time. And this 92 car showed some good pace throughout last season, despite being a first-year team. You know, they really built some really great driving those Ford Mustangs, but they've moved over to Honda, working closely with the Honda factory directly. And Goforth, who had some good showings last season for Spartan Motorsports, looking to impress people this year and perhaps contend for wins. 182 at the line, 49.537 for Cody Goforth, which will beat his Honda family member, Daniel Bouchard, excuse me. Up next, Gatlin Downing Incorporated's Doug Lockrow is on track here. And I'll tell you what, if there's a team that's really excited to be back here at Daytona, it's got to be Gatlin Downing Incorporated and Doug Lockrow. This is where they got their best career finish last season, and what was honestly a Cinderella season for this team. This was a team last year that was expected to fail to qualify for a lot of races, but they really had a great year. They kept the car clean. They had great finishes. They were consistent. And you can get the feeling that this team could be building something great for the future here. And Doug Lockrow, who is on his second year on his 2-year deal with this team, hoping to improve even further. And they're going to have a lot of competition this year, though, which is going to be very interesting to see how this team performs because of it. Coming across the line, Lockrow, not going to be the highest time on the board, but it's going to be a 49.556, which will just beat out Major Robinson. But I'll tell you what, though, I think this team is ready. This team is ready to be back at Daytona and go for a win. They were so close last season, and I think they're going to be in contention for it. On track, a first-year team, but with a very veteran, experienced driver of Ryan Griffin here. Nova Sports number 3 Chevy Camaro is on track here. Now, we mentioned before that CM Racing obviously sold their stuff off to Shea Binyaka Racing, and Shea Binyaka Racing took over the flagship team. And then at some point, I'm sure someone wondered what happened to the old Shade Benyaka Racing Equipment. Well, here it is. Nova Sport, who is entering both trucks and Hardees this season as a first-year team, with a lot of trucks and cars, by the way, which is that's a lot of work. So this is going to be a very busy team this year. They've got Ryan Griffin here for a couple races in the number 3, and they're going to have a couple different drivers in this car as well, including Luis Hernandez. And they are going to be locked into Daytona with their owner's points that they acquired. Coming to line, 182 miles per hour at the line, 49.745 for Nova Sport. And that will put them right behind Tim Fiegel, but will put them in front of Justin Henley. So not bad out qualifying an FRT car. RJ Bishop in the number 71 for Turner Performance Racing, looking to get a nice good lap here. RJ Bishop, who throughout most of 2022 had a very glass cannon type season. If they didn't have a good finish one week, they would wreck the next or have a blow up. And as the year went on, they sorted that out and actually rode a very, very consistent end of last season. The last 10 races, I believe they finished in the top 10 in almost all of them. And they're hoping to ride that momentum into this year. And they're going to have to really hope that they can ride that momentum, because there's going to be some tough competition for Turner this year. And RJ Bishop, he's sort of now the team veteran here, because he's been here for a couple of years. He's got 2 younger teammates here with less experience, so he's going to be expecting to lead the charge for Turner Performance Racing this year. 183 coming to the line. Doesn't hit the 184 that we're looking for. 49.477. A nice solid lap that will put him in the top 10 right in front of his teammate. So solid lap for RJ Bishop. And he will move into the top 10 for now. Well, look who it is. It's Zachary Fitzwater in the number 33, driving for his own team, Fitzwater Racing Team. The oldest driver in FBRL is now racing full-time in the Hardee's National Series after completing his Sony Cup Series season last season. And there's been some interesting discussions about Fitzwater and how he may perform this year for his own team. Fitzwater Racing Team really didn't do very well last year, with Lars Van Schaik at the helm. I didn't pronounce his name right. Yes, I'm aware of that. But Fitzwater, they managed to acquire some owner's points to lock themselves in for a couple races here. And they're looking for an opportunity to get into the top 3 owner's points permanently here. But Fitzwater coming off of turn 4, running 179. Gets to 180. This may not be a very great lap, but the 60-plus-year-old driver is going to run a 50.210, which will put him bottom of the board. He won't start dead last because of provisionals, but still, I don't think that was exactly the lap they were looking for. But Fitzwater, a very veteran driver with a lot of experience, looking to perform better on race day. Now on track here, Corey Williams, a potential favorite for the pole today in the Curtis Racing number 14 Chevy Camaro. One of the veteran drivers of the Hardee's National Series, one of the most successful. Looking to run for a title this season. After last season, they had a great year last season, but unfortunately just wasn't consistent enough with the points to make a title run. But this 14 team, a lot of people are predicting to potentially be the champion this year. And Curtis Racing looked very, very bad fast in testing. I'm not sure what word I was saying to start with an M. But Corey, though, running 183 in the corner, though. We haven't really seen anyone run much of a 184 since Rodriguez did earlier in the day. But Corey running 182 through most of the corner, gets a good run off of the final corner here. We'll see what time he can get. This could be a 0.3, maybe a 0.2. 0.393 for Corey Williams, which will put him just behind Richard Johnson. Not exactly the lap I was expecting, but still a solid lap nonetheless. Ryan Butcher in the 8 car for Shade Bignacco Racing. And you want to talk about a driver who really exploded onto the scene last year. Ryan Butcher, he took Shade Bignacco Racing, a team that wasn't expected to really contend much above the mid-pack, and turned basically, at the time, the 88 team into almost a championship-level car. And Butcher was originally announced to get promoted to CM Racing, but because of the CM Racing SBR merger, Butcher ended up staying right where he was last season, but with now slightly different equipment. Butcher running 181 down the straightaway here. Does not look like this is going to be a pole lap, but there is a lot of eyes on Ryan Butcher this year to see what he can do in this 8 car. Trying to at least, I think he would like to at least beat his teammate here on speed. 182 coming to the line. 49.688. So he will qualify just behind his teammate Kev Shear. Shea Bignacco Racing, I don't think they're having exactly the qualifying they were hoping for so far, but they've got a lot to get used to with all the changes they've had to go through so far this offseason. On track, Kyle Springer in number 2 for TJ Smith Incorporated. TJ Smith Incorporated, their 2nd year in the Hardee's National Series. And they've had an interesting offseason as well. SV Motorsports, coming off their first win last season, elected to leave the Hardee Series to focus on their Cup program. And as a result, they sold all their assets off to TJ Smith Incorporated. And that's going to add some intrigue to this number 2 team because, and number 20 as well. We'll see another TJ Incorporated car later. But this is a team that's inheriting some solid equipment, and they have a really promising dryer. Wow. Dryer. They have a very promising driver with Kyle Springer, who's been running in the Truck Series the past couple seasons, and had a couple of really great runs in the Hardee's last season for SV Motorsports. And looking to put in a good time here for TJ Smith Incorporated. Fluttering 183 at the line, 49.502. That's a good lap for this team. That beats a Curtis Racing car as well. Nice lap. Really impressive job by Springer and TJI. So they will out-qualify a Curtis car and a couple of Shade Bignacco cars as well. One of the big surprises of the offseason, Jeff James coming over to the Hardee's National Series to come drive for Curtis Racing here in 2023. A very exciting driver and team combo here, and a lot of people are predicting Jeff James to be a big threat for the title this season. And it's not easy. It's not hard to explain why. Jeff James, a very accomplished Sony Cup Series driver, many years of experience. He's got a great team behind him here. And he's trying to see if he can clock in a pole lap here. 182 down the back straightaway here. 183 entering turn 3. We're still looking for that 184 that Rodriguez was able to get. But Jeff James here hoping that his speed through the corners will carry him to a nice potential pole lap here. Coming to the line, James getting up to 183. And a 49.511 for Jeff James. A little bit slower than I was expecting, but perhaps I think they may be focusing on the race setup here. And to go back to Kyle Springer, they've now just out-qualified 2 Curtis Racing cars. Spar Motorsports, another car out on track here with their number 77. Brandon Beal here out on track in this car. Beal will be running a part-time schedule throughout the year for Spartan, as this number 77 is going to have a lot of different drivers driving it throughout the year. And Brandon Beal looking to impress. Looking for a 2.63 as Eric Rodriguez currently still holds the pole as it stands. And Beal, 182. Clocking up to 183. Close to 184 entering turn 3. This is looking to be a pretty solid lap here. Beal holding 182 through the corner and gets a nice solid run off. Beal gets to 183. This is looking to be a pretty good lap here for the 77 car. 49.4. That will put him ahead of Tib Foster and inside the top 10. So a nice solid lap for Brandon Beal, as he is now one of the top Hondas. I believe he is the top Honda actually. Here's the second TJI car of Ryan Dagby in the number 20. Forgot to mention this earlier. When I mentioned that TJ Smith Incorporated, they not only acquired all the SC Motorsports assets from last season, they're actually in a technical alliance with them as well. So Dagby and Springer looking to really impress this weekend. Also, this 20, this is going to have a lot of different drivers in this car throughout the year, and it's going to be very interesting to see how those guys perform. We'll get to see them as the year rolls on. Dagby 182 entering turn 3. Not what you're going to be looking for if you want the pole here, but Dagby is at least trying to match Springer, but I think Springer's going to have a bit of a faster lap than this. At least that's what it appears to be so far. Dagby coming across the line. 49.737, a bit farther down the board. But when you are, this is a team that's going from 1 car to 2 cars, so this could be part of the growing pains. Up next is the second Fitzwater Racing Team car, being driven by Lilith Onyx. Lilith Onyx, she ran a couple of races last season. Didn't exactly impress a lot of people with her driving at points, but regardless, she's managed to attain a full-time ride for this year, driving for a Fitzwater Racing Team. And I'm sure this team is hoping that they can at least qualify better than Fitzwater did. You can see Fitzwater over there, 50.210. This team would like to match it. 59 is sort of tracking towards a high 49, I believe. Off of turn number 4. Let's see what lap Onyx puts in here. And it's going to be a 50.089, so she does at least beat her teammate, but she will be at the bottom of the board. Up next, we have the second Nova Sport car, the number 88 for Zachary DeLello. Zachary DeLello was actually supposed to drive for Shade Benyako Racing this season, but after the merger happened, they had to shuffle the driver roster, and they sent DeLello to Nova Sports so that they could honor his commitment for the Hardee's National Series this year. DeLello was on Shade Benyako's truck team and actually kind of struggled a little bit for speed throughout the year. They didn't have a good points finish. And a lot of people are curious to see how he'll do here in the Hardee Series. We see sometimes that maybe some drivers are more suited for certain cars, and I think a lot of people are wondering if maybe these Hardee's cars will be better for DeLello's driver development. Coming off turn number 4, running 180. And one of the other big storylines this season here is he crosses the line to take his time. 49.974, 2/10 slower than Griffin, his teammate. So I think DeLello was hoping for maybe a little bit more. And also, like I said before, one of the big storylines this season, I think, for DeLello is whether the fact that I can actually spell his name correctly. Up next, we have Allison Rain in the number 22 Fisher Motorsports car. And some big changes over at Fisher Motorsports regarding this 22 team this season. This car, which won 4 times last season with Luke Martin at the helm, they have changed this car from a full-time driver car to a rotation car. So we're going to have a bunch of different drivers driving this number 22 car throughout the year. And we'll see how Fisher Motorsports does. And I think this team's going to be really missing Luke Martin, to be quite honest. And I'm curious to see how they will perform without him at the helm. Rain clocked in 182 entering turn 3. So this is looking to be maybe in the 49.5s and above. Coming to the line, Rain, 182. Can she get to 183 at the line? Not quite. 49.524 for Allison Rain, which will put her at about 16th. Tyler Black in the 91 Honda Accord for Spartan Motorsports. And there was a team that really showed last season that they could be a title contender this year. It definitely was Tyler Black and his group over at Spartan Motorsports here. He switched from the 84 to the 91. And they're going to be looking for a pole lap here potentially. Black has been very quick in testing. Consistently the fastest Honda car in testing. But down the straightaway here, 182, needs to get into the 184 area. Not quite there. He clocks in at 183. I don't think this is going to be a pole lap, but it should still be a very strong one. Final corner here. Black off at turn 4 to the line. Can he get to 183 at the line? Looking to be pretty good here. A little bit quicker there at the very end. 49.475 for Tyler Black. That'll put him just behind his teammate Cameron Lessard. So Black will not qualify in the top 10, but still a nice solid lap there to get his year going. Here's the final Curtis Racing car to qualify. Kyle Collins in number 41. Looking to take his lap here. Kyle Collins had a pretty interesting year last season. It seemed that this 41 car was bad fast on anything that didn't have banking, as Collins on the road courses was just an absolute animal and showed some really incredible speed. And this year, this team is focusing on trying to improve the intermediates this year. And if they want to contend for a title, they're going to have to really get good at those. Collins here clocking in 183 entering turn 3. Looking to be a nice solid lap here. Holding 182 pretty steady through the corner. Going to try and get a nice run off here to the line. 183 pretty early. If he can get to 184, not quite there, but solid. 49.416 for Kyle Collins, which will put him tied with Foster, but ahead based on owners' points. Nice solid lap for Collins. The final Shade Binyaka racing car, James Elson in the number 93. Here he comes for the start of his lap here. James Ellison, who in one of the most memorable parts of last season managed to get into the top 30 in owners points at the very last second. And what was a very, very tough year for this 93 team. They flipped to Talladega. They struggled throughout the year to stay in the owners points hunt. And they only just managed to get in at the last second here. And Ellison is really hoping that they can really turn things around. He's got a nice experienced teammate in Kev Shear with him now. They've got what should be an improvement in equipment. And they're hoping that these changes will benefit Ellison to have a much better year than he did last year. 183 off of 4. It's a pretty good speed there at the line. 49.351. Wow, that's a really good lap for Ellison there. He gets right in front of Dom Capps. Excellent work. By far the fastest Shade Benyako car in the session. And that's going to put him in the top 5 for the time being. Impressive. Here comes the second Single Z racing car with Griffin Lapo McDermott at the helm here. And this is also probably one of my favorite driver team lineups this season, just based on storylines. Griffin Lapo McDermott, he's kind of struggled in the Truck Series for the past couple of years and has been someone that a lot of people have been questioning his ability on, but last season he ran a part-time schedule at SC Motorsports and he looked amazing. He ran in the top 10 almost every single time he got in one of their cars, including a top 10 finish at Eagle Point, which I think turned a lot of heads around, saying, hey, you know, maybe the trucks just don't work out for him. Maybe the Hardee series could fit him a bit better. And Single Z, I think, recognized that, and they've brought him on board to try and see if they can get some magic with him. Now, I don't think this lap's going to be a lot of magic, but at the same time, he could be someone to watch out for at certain races this season. McDermott across the line, 49.630, which is slightly about a tenth slower than his teammate, but still, that still puts him in the top 25 for the time being. And the second question is, will this fit in the box? No, it doesn't. Okay, so I'm going to put Lapo McD. D's nuts. Got him. 5 cars left to qualify, and here is the number 24 of Ryan Reed for Texan Motorsports. And last season was a year to forget, and so far things have not gone off to the best start this year. As Dunn LaPrade, his teammate, has unfortunately failed to qualify for the race. So it's now up to Ryan Reed to succeed this weekend here. Luckily he is locked in on owners points, so getting in the race was not a problem for him. Unfortunately it's going to be pretty lonely though, but he does have some Flipside Motorsports cars to potentially work with. 182 entering turn 3. Reed trying to hold a nice steady line through turns 3 and 4. Got to at least keep it above 180. Gets it back to 181. Well, this is looking like it's going to be in the higher 49s. Reed across the line. 49.695. That will put him right behind Ryan Butcher. So Ryan Reed's going to have some work to do as Texan Motorsports continues to try and get used to the new Mercedes cars. Here is last year's Daytona winner, Noah Hart, back in the number 18 for Rodriguez Racing, here for 2023. Noah Hart won at Daytona last season in an exciting finish as him and Nick Breeding tandem their way to a victory. And looking to do the same magic this weekend here. Hart is the 4th to last car to come out here and qualify. And they're looking for the pole here. Still, no one's been able to get as close in the session as Nick Breeding was to Eric Rodriguez. Hard running 182, 181 in the corner here. Not sure if this is going to be a pole lap, but should still be a nice solid lap nonetheless. I think this is going to be in the mid 49s, maybe a bit higher, as Hard kind of struggled there at the end. 49.527. It looked like Hard's car kind of just stopped momentum there for a brief moment, because he was gaining speed and then he topped out at 182 for a brief moment there. So Hard, he is going to be starting a little bit deeper in the field than I think he wanted. But doesn't always matter where you start, it's where you finish. Here's the final Joseph Sirigley racing car. It's Stuart Gratton in the number 16. Here for a full-time season. It's been a couple of years since we've seen Stuart Gratton. Ran in the Truck Series part-time for CM Racing. And went back to Australia for a couple of years, but he is now back. And Sirigley Racing has brought him in to try and develop him. A lot of people are expecting him to be a contender on the road courses this year, but how he will do on the intermediates, that is going to be a different question entirely. So Gratton is looking at potentially trying to beat Richard Johnson and Tib Foster, however, only 182 in the corner. This car does not seem to have the hop that Johnson's and Foster's car may have had. 182 off of turn 4. Can they at least get to 183? No, not quite there. 49.547. That will put him just outside the top half of the field. It will put him right in front of Doug Lockrow. Two cars left to go, as here comes Tyler Commons in the second Allen Family Racing Team car. Tyler Commons moving from Young Motorsports over to AFRT. And he's going to be part of this AFRT rebuild. And I have to say, that's a pretty solid driver pickup that AFRT has managed to get. As Tyler Commons did a pretty good job for Young Motorsports last year, I'd say. Got some good finishes out of a car that often struggled to well, at least for the 36 side of the team, often struggled to get into races. And Commons impressed a lot of people. And he's trying to see if he can do the same for AFRT. This is probably the best equipment he's had in a long time. But unfortunately, the time does not seem to be on his side here. He's trying to at least beat the 49.8 that his teammate Henley got. And he does, barely, with a 49.787, which will put him just in front of Henley, in fact. So FRT not having the qualifying session I think they were hoping for here, but it's all part of the process, and they're in the middle of it, that's for sure. Here's the final car to qualify today. Gatlin Downey in the number 12 Fisher Motorsports Toyota Supra. He's looking to beat a 49.263. Eric Rodriguez qualified really early in the day. No one has been able to beat that time. And he's locked on the front row, but he wants pole position. Downey's teammate Rain qualified with a 49.524. Downey is looking to try and break the hole that Rodriguez has had so far today. It's going to have to be key for him to get into the 184 area entering turn 3. That has been the money time to have a shot at the pole. 182. 183. Trying to get to 184. Doesn't get there. Gonna have to really pick up speed off of the turn 4 exit, I think. It's gonna be close here. Downey ran 182 through most of the corner, but it's going to have to be an absolute smoker to get to the pole. 183 needs to get to 184. Will it be enough at the line? No, 49.397. That will put him in the top 10. Eric Rodriguez in the 63 for Flipside Motorsports on debut has qualified on pole at Daytona. Him and Bobo Jones will share the front row, and a front row I don't think anyone expected. Gallant Downey will qualify 9th for his final lap here. It's a very good lap, but not enough to get the pole. It is the Eric Rodriguez show tonight, and he's going to be on pole position for Daytona, and something I'm not sure anyone expected. Mercedes gets its first pole, and it's going to be a very interesting Daytona race.